Hello, and welcome to episode 3. I think it's 3 of Uran Rants. This is gonna be the one where I talk about the most underrated gen in all of Pokemon history. And when I decided on this topic, I had a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to discuss, a lot of things to go over. And I'm gonna be real with you. As I'm literally recording this, I have blank mind about how I want to go about this. So, while the others had structure to it, I don't know what the structure of this one is going to end up looking like. So, I'm going to apologize for that in advance. UN Rants is a series I do where I basically rant or talk about things that I have interest in or that I just feel a little bit outspoken about. And I just go over, well, pretty much how I feel about these things, what I think should be done, or yeah. And when it comes to Pokemon, I don't know if you know, if you couldn't tell from my literal profile picture, yes, there's a Yoshi, but he's wearing a literal Wartortle hood. I literally have Squirtle, Wartortle, Blastoise pretty much plastered everywhere alongside Squirtle, alongside Yoshi, so yeah, I'm a pretty big Pokemon fan, and I grew up with Pokemon. I've been playing Pokemon since I was like 5. And I didn't own my own Pokemon game till like Pokemon Crystal came out. But I always used to play on my sister's Pokemon Red, so that was one of the things that happened. Like, I just happened to play a lot of Pokemon growing up, and I really do enjoy the series. I enjoy the franchise, and I wanted to talk about pretty much what I feel is the most underrated gen in all of Pokemon. A gen that gets so much hate for no real reason, as far as I'm concerned, and that is Generation 7. But to talk about Generation 7, we have to pretty much acknowledge where Pokemon was at the time. And that's why I really want to get into this. So, Pokemon coming up, it was a monster franchise. It still is a monster franchise. You had the success of Red and Blue, into Gold and Silver, into Gen 3. Gen 4, there was a little bit of peter off. Gen 5, there was a pretty big peter off. But at the same time, when I played Gen 5, specifically when I played the original Black and White, I was kind of blown away. I was actually very much impressed. It did not become my favorite Pokemon games as we were still Heart Gold, Soul Silver, but I was blown away by the fact that they actually did a story that appealed to the older fans. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot. I was very much excited. And then we had the transition to 3D. And let me tell you, I was excited. Generation 6 had me very, very excited. I could not believe what was happening. We were getting a new type, we were getting Mega Evolutions, we were getting so many things that could make this gen potentially the best gen in all of Pokemon history. And then we got our hands on the game, and I played through it, X and Y, and I was left at the other end of it feeling very deflated. I don't feel like I need to point out Gen 6 was not very good, but the entirety of Gen 6 wasn't good. It wasn't just X and Y being disappointing games, it was Oras also being disappointing. And as much as Megas were cool and flying around the region on Latios was cool in Oras, and the Delta episode was cool, it doesn't pretty much. The rest of the game takes away from all of that little positives that you have going for it. X and Y is the biggest offender of just being a really easy game and the plot being really bad. And Ruby and Sapphire were not difficult games per se, but they're inferior. I will say they're inferior to Emerald in every way. So remaking those games and not adding in the Emerald enhancements like you did with Heart Gold, Soul Silver, adding in Crystal enhancements was a mistake, and that made Oras so disappointing to me. You'll be like, oh, but the Delta episode's cool. Don't get me wrong. And it's awesome they found a way to incorporate Rayquaza and Deoxys into it. At the same time, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it was the entirety of Gen 6 was good, that the games leading up casual playthroughs were good. I will say I love the competitive in Gen 6, but yeah. Gen 6 overall left a very bitter taste in my mouth, and I wasn't a fan. And there were lots of things that needed to change. And the fans, oh my god, the fans of Pokemon were not happy. They were like, oh, we need to change these things. We need to change to the system. We don't want no more gym leaders. We don't want the same raggedy story retitled over and over again. We want something new. Give us something exciting. Change the formula, Game Freak. Change the formula. And then Game Freak listened. Game Freak listened. You got your Gen 6, and Gen 7 came out really fast. I was honestly surprised with how fast Gen 7 came around, but Gen 7 came around pretty fast. We got Alola, and we got a lot of changes. We got, first and foremost, Gen 6 had a piss poor story. It was awful. It was terrible. You go into Gen 7, and one of the biggest cutscenes one of the biggest complaints I've heard about Gen 7 was too many cutscenes. And I'm sitting here like, y'all, please. Gen 6's story was one of the worst things I have ever played through in the Pokemon franchise. If not the worst. Now, the spin-off stories are normally absolutely fantastic. And Gen 1 is Gen 1. I can't really say anything. Gen 1's very simple. So, yeah, I'm not gonna go ahead and be like, oh yeah, Gen 1's some story, man. Nah, Gen 1 is simple as shit. Gen 6 tried and absolutely failed as story. Gen 7 took something and took a step in the right direction for Pokemon stories to be both appealing to the younger people and still appealing to older folks in a very similar vein to what Gen 5 did. And it was amazing. Lusamine is a crazy ass. But yeah, I liked so many different elements. I liked the character development of all of the people. It wasn't shoehorned in, it wasn't weird, it was actually well thought out, good character development all the way through, and I enjoyed that so much. Even Alolan Hop, as people like to call him, How, he was like a weird spot, but I understood where he was coming from and I understood the story they were trying to tell with him. I feel like it wasn't as expounded on. There needed to be more scenes featuring him, but between Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, it was such a massive improvement over, and you needed those cuts. And like, seriously, they're made literally in-game engine. I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, but there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of things, a lot of cutscenes. Some of them I understand if you've played this game more than once, but if you've played it for the first time, the very first time you're playing this game, like I understand challenge run wise, it's not the greatest, but if it's the first time you're playing the game, you'll watch these, unless you're one of those weirdos who's like, I don't play Pokemon for the story, I play Pokemon for get your catch Pokemon and bad Pokemon, I don't care about the story. Why are you playing the game if you don't give a shit about the story, bro? I'm sorry, like, every time I hear that argument that Pokemon games aren't about the story, it's an element of the game, and it's something, but Pokemon game stories are so bad, I'm like, are they bad? Because I don't think the Pokemon stories are that bad. They're very simplistic, and sometimes simple is good. And some of these stories aren't even that simple. Hence, case in point, we got Gen 5, we got Gen 7. So I can't even say we got Gen 9 in this too. So I don't really need to go over why that argument to me is incredibly annoying and stupid. Because every time I mention why I like specific gens, people complain about, oh, this and oh, that, and oh, I'm like, too much cuts. I'm like, the games are, you feel more when you're actually connected to the story. So how are you out here complaining about the story trying to actually grasp you and literally like make you be invested in these characters? Like, I've seen so many people complain about How and Hop, and I'm like, I love their character development. How are y'all complaining? Specifically Hop. How is, again, I think How is like a failed Hop, and Hop is a true, like, really well put together. How is still good, but he's nowhere near as good as Hop. Hop was such a well-written rival, and I wish that people would stop going off on it. I'm not even trying to make this like a rant about Gen 8, but I just had to put that in there because people be doing a whole lot of, yeah, but Gen 7, Gen 8's better than Gen 7. I hate this shit so much. I hate it so much because Pokemon actually put some effort into Gen 7, like a lot of effort into Gen 7. So let's start off with a lot of the good that came out of Gen 7. Some of the things that people love to kind of gloss over but love. Alolan forms, regional variants. Regional variants was one of the best things that Pokemon has ever implemented. That originated in Sun and Moon. That was one of the things that a lot of people loved about Sun and Moon and still do love to this day about Sun and Moon. Though some people are like, oh, it's lazy, just not eradicate, oh, just another... People are weird, but for me, I thought it was a very nice and interesting way to go about it. Because, of course, when you go to different countries around the world, you still meet different species of the same, animal. And they only adapted now. They all evolved from pretty much the same creature, but they adapted based off of where they ended up in the world and the climate. So it affects it. So of course it makes sense that you go to a different region, a different part of the world, that they're gonna be stuff like that. And that was one of the things that I was like, oh man, Sun and Moon looks really good. Another thing they get blasted for is Z moves, and I'm like, I kinda get it, but I'm kind of fine with it. I'm not the biggest fan of Z moves, but they're like the lamest gimmick to me. Outside of Dynamaxing, I was really the biggest fan of Dynamaxing. I think it was cool enough, but those two are definitely on my bottom. I like Megas a lot. Terrestrialization is not better than Megas to me, but Terrestrialization is one of the more balanced mechanics that they had, so I can honestly say I like that more in general. Dynamax is also balanced, but not in the way I like it, so yeah. Now, I was just talking about the story elements. People were talking about progression in Pokemon, how it's always locked behind, gyms and all that other stuff. Another thing that it was locked behind? HMs. Yeah, y'all remember when Pokemon Sun and Moon removed HMs? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember when we didn't have HMs in Pokemon anymore? Where you don't need to break a rock in your path to go through it? You don't need to cut some random shrubbery to get past it. Y'all remember that when HMs were removed from Pokemon? Yeah, that was Gen 7. That was Gen 7. A lot of gameplay-wise, Gen 7 improved on. And the one thing I really, really, really want to highlight was, oh yeah man, Gen 6 was so piss poor easy. Gen 7, oh my god, Gen 7. Let me tell you, it's not just the Lusamine fight. There are so many fights in that game that if you're not ready for, you will get your ass beat. The Totem Pokemon are no joke. They literally are actual bosses, like gym leaders. Most of them you have the correct typing and you just beat through them. Even in this game you have the correct typing and the Pokemon themselves are prepared. Like, truly prepared. That Totem Lurantis was one of the most scary battles I have ever had. In fact, I will go out and say Sun and Moon had some of the hardest battles I ever participated in. I got swept by how? After Ula Ula. Was it Ula Ula? It was Akala Island when we arrived to Ula Ula. Because I was on the level by not using Experience here, and his Alolan Raichu basically had my entire team locked. It had Psychic to wipe pretty much everything else, and then Electro Ball to outspeed and destroy everything else. Want to know how underleveled I was? I still had Lycanroc's pre-evolution. I had a Rockruff still. That's how underleveled I was. I was not prepared for my ass to get beat that hard, that fast, or that bad. No amount of potions, no amount of revives, nothing was changing how that battle was going. Nothing. So, that was partially me being underleveled, but that just goes to show I'm around level 30, well he's around level 30, and he's already blasting up moves like Psychic and Electro Ball, like there's, bro, they're not playing, they were not playing. They already have type coverage, they already have things set up, they're ready that early in the game. Don't even get me started on, and again, Akala Island is literally where everything kind of picked up. Like, the first island, they had some pretty tough fights, like that dude with the Smirkle was actually pretty tough. Like, he's actually kind of tough. Even the lady who had to started that strong against you, the school teacher, it was a lot of things that just built up and kept coming up with Gen 7 that fixed a lot of the issues with Gen 6 and literally addressed a lot of the complaints that Pokemon fans were having. Oh, the story in Gen 6 was bad, they gave you a better story. Now, for your challenge runners, a lot of people will complain that Gen 7 has a lot of fluff, has a lot of this, has a lot of that, it has so much cutscenes, it's such a slog to play through. And I'm like, Yeah, because you're doing it as a challenge run, and you're gonna restart on numerous times because you're doing some ridiculously hard challenge, making it much more difficult for you to, sit through. You're not playing for the story, you're playing for strictly gameplay, and the strictly gameplay gets broken up because of said cutscenes, and these cutscenes help to enhance the gameplay when you're playing casually. But you're not playing casually, you're doing a challenge run. So of course these games aren't gonna translate over to being, oh my god, this is the best challenge run ever. No, you're not gonna get that. They are really hard games, and they will make you suffer. And the fact that you're gonna have to sit down and watch those cutscenes multiple times because your Nuzlocke is going to randomly get railroaded by a Smeargle is hilarious and painful. It is painful. I've done a Pokemon Sun and Moon. Was it Ultra Sun or was it a regular Sun and Moon? I don't remember which one. But I did a hardcore Nuzlocke of it using Pokemon that Markiplier said he would smash. Check that on my VOD channel, by the way. That's youtube.com/Uran10VODs. Check that out. Check it. But yeah, I did that challenge. That shit was hard. I restarted multiple times. That shit was hard. I even got screwed when I went into the when I fought an Elgin because I didn't expect it to have any moves because I looked at Elgin's moveset and Elgin only let Psychic type move. But no, the game was like, nah, bro, we lied. Your Zoroark that you were planning on cheesing the shit with, nah, not getting that. It's gonna get Signal Beam and die. Shit pissed me off because that was some bullshit, bro. That was some bullshit. But anyway, point I'm saying is, Gen 7 provided a challenge that was missing from Pokemon since Gen 5. Gen 6, you could walk through that game real easy and it's not a problem. You just fly through it. It's very, very easy. It's not a problem. It's not a hard game. It is actually really, really simple, and I did not like that about Gen 6. There were a lot of cool mechanics that Gen 6 introduced that were abandoned, like the sky battles and such, but at the same time, I'm gonna be real honest with you. Gen 6 was so disappointing that when Gen 7 came out, there was less hype around Gen 7, but then as Gen 7 got more, there was a lot more hype that was built up as you got more information. And then as you played through the game, I played through the game, and every time, the last time we had a raw villain in Pokemon before Gen 7 was Gen 5. Getsis tries to murder you. I didn't know that till very recently because I never played through Black and White 2. I only played through Black and White 1 originally. When I played through Black and White 2, and I saw this man was like, well, you think you're gonna have some Pokemon battle with you? No. I am going to order this legendary Pokemon that I have to literally freeze you. And by freeze you, I mean it's going to impale you with ice. That animation wasn't an animation of, oh, you're going to be frozen. No. That was an animation of, impaled, GG Novi, you're going to die. That's what that animation was. And if it wasn't for N being N, coming in clutch, Getsis would have won. And then, if I was Getsis, I'm going to be real honest with you. After I've taken over N's legendary, do you think I'm gonna be like, I'm engaging in a battle and you're facing the legendary? No! I'm gonna go back to round 1. I'm gonna go back to freezing your ass now that there's no one who can stop me. That was his only mistake. He should have tried to murder again. He would have won. But we also have to look at the next raw villain, the Gen 7 raw villain. We have to look at that crazy bitch known as Lusamine. That bitch went off the deep end. Her husband got absorbed through a warp hole. And she went off the deep end. She went crazy. She fused herself with a goddamn alien creature. All of her Pokemon had like +6 in multiple stats. She was crazy. We were following, if you were reading the signs, oh, Pikachu and Slowpoke and friends, you reach to her base, she has them on ice. She has them cryogenically frozen. This bitch was crazy. She literally walked to her children and told them, I have no kids. Y'all ain't sponsoring me. Y'all want to change me on y'all. Get out of here. Y'all ain't my kids. What? Just own you. Just own y'all. Y'all ain't my kids. Get out of here. Lusamine was shit crazy. Her battle was hard. Was actually legitimately tough. She was such a good villain. And Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon tried to correct that. They tried to, course correct, because Pokemon realized they made one of the rawest villains they've ever made. And they're like, nah, she's too raw. We gotta tone her down. We gotta calm her down. We gotta bring her down. We can't have her be on that level. She's too much. She's too good. She is amazing. She can't be used to me. We gotta chill. We gotta chill on her. Sun and Moon created one of the most pristine villains that Pokemon has ever seen. And let's not even, that's just me talking about the main villain. Let's get into some of those sub-villains. Let's get into Team Skull. Team Skull was like Team Rocket, but actually funny. Team Skull was hilarious. They were great, and I loved Guzma. Guzma was just amazing. Team Skull was one of the most lovable teams. And I don't mean that in, oh yeah, they're lovable because they're just goofballs. They're lovable because you can see everything leading up to it. It was nice. And it wasn't just a typical, oh, I have some grandeur thing. It's like, we are all rejects from this region. We are all rejects. And we want to prove that we are better than that. And so they did all of that, and I liked it so much. It brought so much character. Again, the character development in Generation 7 was so goddamn good. It fixed so many things that was wrong with Generation 6. And all I keep hearing from people is how, for some ungodly reason, Alola is bad. All I keep hearing from a lot of people is that Alola is bad. This gen is better. Alola is one of the worst gens. Oh my god, thank god we don't have XYZ. Oh my god, Z-moves are trash. Oh my god, Alola is this. And it never sat right with me. It never once sat right with me. It always bothered the shit out of me. Cause I played through these games and I'm like, they're not as good as Gen 5. Story-wise. But difficulty-wise either. Gen 5 kind of wrecks your shit if you're not ready. Gen 7 does the same thing. I think Gen 7 is actually harder than Gen 5 when I really think about it. When I really sit down and think about it. Especially Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, oh my god. Because I remember the first time when I played Sun and Moon, and I saw what the final Totem Pokemon was going to be, the dragon, I was laughing my ass off because I'm like, oh, the pseudo-legendary? Guess which starter I chose? Chose Primarina, baby. Let's go on top. What's happening here? Totem Pokemon shines bright. Raps. As Flight Manager said, blast. And guess what? It died. One shot. Not a chance. It didn't stand a chance. No Pokemon to help. It was probably the most anticlimactic final boss fight because it was 4 times weak to Fury. But at the same time, what happened to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon? I was laughing my ass off as I got back to him. And I was ready. I was like, alright, Primarina, we're going to do a rinse and repeat. We're going to moonblast the shit out of it, and it's going to be over, and we're going to be back to reaching to the top and seeing what the main difference between these games are. And Pokemon Company was like, yes. We have a Rabuta berry on it, bro. You don't one-shot him this time, but guess what he does? He one-shots you with Poison Jab. I was like, oh shit. Oh, wait, I actually have to fight now. I actually have to... Oh shit. So it wasn't even within the gen, they found ways to make the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon harder than Sun and Moon. And Sun and Moon were already hard games. For a Pokemon game, these games are hard. Every time I hear people say, piss poor, easy, I'm like, turn off your experience shit for like 5 minutes. And you don't even have to. The game actually goes out of its way to make a lot of the boss fights challenging. Like, again, I don't have to the Totem Pokemon, Totem Raticate can definitely, and Totem Gumshoes can screw you over if you're not careful. The first fight, this is literally your first time eating someone else's Z-move. And that fighting type Z-move will probably knock out your Pokemon. Unless you kind of bait it and you like switch to a Ghost type or something like that. But it will probably knock the shit out of your Pokemon. And then you go straight to the next island and fight the Totem Lurantis, the Totem Waranid, I forgot what it's. Oh, wait, what was that one? The one with schooling. Wishy-Washy? Don't even get me started on Totem Salazzle and Totem Marowak. If you're not careful, those things can actually mess you up. And again, I want to emphasize on this goddamn thing. I started with Poplio, so Totem Lurantis was a bitch. And I'm telling you, that fight, even if you have a flying type, even if you have a literal fire poison type, Totem Lurantis does not care. It gets that sunlight and just solar blade. And solar, you're literally around level 16, level 17, and you're getting hit with a 120 physical solar beam. Ew. Gen 7 was a menace in a good way. So I've spoken about difficulty. I've spoken about story. And there are so many different things in the gameplay that we can go off on. I've also spoken about the HMs, but we also have, the Mantine Surf and a bunch of other mini games. We have the fact that once again, this gen once more made competitive battling and just the whole access of it so much easier. You got the same hyper training return. Again, Gen 6, one of the things I would say, Gen 6, the story was really bad. Casual playthrough is not fun. However, I will go out and I will say this about Gen 6 every time. Gen 6 made getting into competitive Pokemon easy, and I love that about it. And Gen 7 continued that trend of making getting into competitive Pokemon easy. And I like that. You had the whole Bean Island, a bunch of other stuff you could set up. They made different ways for you to get evolution stones. They made it a lot nicer and a lot of ways for you to kind of mine materials that you wouldn't be able to. And it made it really nice. I like a lot of the stuff that they did to ease you into the competitive aspect of it. And there's a lot of different things to do. I will say nerfing Gale Wings is bullshit. Please give me Gen 6 Gale Wings in Gen 10 Pokemon. I will play competitive again if you do that. Trust me. Make Talonflame great again. No, that's not a reference to any politician. Trust me. I just want Talonflame to be good. But yeah, point is, I've seen so much hate online for Gen 7 that I just had to go out and just debunk a lot of the shit and point out the reason why a lot of people weren't enjoying the games as much. And I'll say it, Gen 7 took what made Gen 6 terrible for a casual playthrough, improved upon it, and also gave you different ways to get your Pokemon stats boosted and get your IVs and your EVs and everything all set up. So every time I look at Gen 7, I look at the hate that it gets, and I can't sit here and pretend like a lot of other people that it's a bad gen. I can't sit here and act like the Pokemon introduced were... Gen 7 had an issue with Pokemon introduced, don't get me wrong. I don't know why everything was slow. That was really weird. It's like they were trying to prevent power creep with speed, and I don't know what the point of that was, because some Pokemon should have been faster. But on a whole, it took something that Pokemon needed and it expanded upon it. It literally took what I consider to be a complete misstep in Gen 6, the casual game, and set it on what I would say is a course-correcting proper path. They gave us difficult fights, actual difficult fights in a Pokemon game. Actual competitive strategies were used by not gym leaders, but by totem Pokemon, by boss fights, by your totem, I forgot what they were called. The Kahunas, all of those people. Like, everything was made out. Even the Elite 4 was like, the Kukui fight at the end was actually pretty good. The Howl fight was not as good as the Kukui one, but still pretty good. Like, again, Team Skull. I've been praising the story heavy, but can we just speak about Gladion real quick? Like, this dude was walking around with essentially a legendary Pokemon in his pocket, and you fought that shit once again when you were around level 16. A lot of people did not have a second form starter Pokemon by the time you fought Type Null. And yeah, it was mostly just tackling you But coming off of that high ass attack stat, come on, bro, shit's not fun. Like legit. Gen 7 said everyone said, oh, y'all said Gen 6 was easy and decided to up the ante in a way that I absolutely loved. There are times when it feels like it was trying to absolutely murk me, and I'm like, that's how it should feel, honestly. And if you're just playing too casually, you're gonna have fun. And even when you see Nuzlocke, the amount of times I've seen people have to sacrifice Pokemon to get through to make their Sun and Moon Nuzlocke actually possible is like, these games are legitimately some of the hardest in the franchise, and people don't give them enough love. And then people love to shit on the story when the story is actually one of the best in the franchise by far. And then the gameplay is also really good. I know some of the problems people had was somewhat performance issues a little bit, but just don't play in 3D. I don't remember if you could play in 3D anyway. That was Gen 6, but the new 3DS basically pretty much fixes that issue. If you had a regular 3DS, you were not going to have a very pleasant time playing through these games. I'm not going to front. That is definitely a flaw that these games had. Performance was definitely an issue depending on the hardware you were playing on. So I'm not going to go out and say, dang. But yeah, I can give that up. But what I really wanted to say essentially is that Generation 7 to me is the most underrated gen of Pokemon, because it was the gen that I will straight up say Game Freak listen to criticism. And I feel like Game Freak has been listening to criticism along the way a lot of times, and it manifests itself in ways, and y'all still complain because y'all get what y'all want, and then y'all like, we don't like this shit, go back. Because that's one of the things I got out of Alola that a lot of people were essentially saying. They were like, we liked it, it was novel, it was great, okay, we want to go back to gym leaders now. And I was kind of like, it became more of a traditional RPG. We actually had like legitimately difficult fights, legitimate bosses. We had one really souped up thing that we were fighting. We had bosses with powerful ass moves. We had different ways to go about it and different team synergies, the way Pokemon was to be made to make it more difficult. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there, and I want to pretty much end this off with saying that Gen 7 is one of my favorite gens. Obviously, I love Gen 2. Obviously, I love Johto. And I'm not going to make this, maybe I can make like a quick video on it later on to go over, I actually make a Pokemon Gens tier list between Gens 1 all the way through 9 to kind of explain my feelings fully on them, but Gen 7 is one of my favorites. I think Gen 7 took a lot of the criticism that Pokemon was getting, tackled it, they removed HMs, they did a lot of really good things, and they fixed the difficulty issue. They took what was the most disappointing Gen 6, and completely said throw it in the bin for the most part and revamp the story so the story is good. And I understand there are valid complaints about the cutscenes, because once you've seen them once, obviously if you're going to replay it, it's thing. But for me, if I'm replaying Pokemon, I'm also trying to enjoy the story again as well. The only time I'm not trying to enjoy the story is if I'm literally just doing a challenge run. And I'm gonna be real, sometimes I sit back and I'm like, damn, Lusamine was crazy. She disowned her children. She was keeping Pokemon alive. She was crazy. She had this perfectionist standard, what everyone had to live up to and be stifled into. You had to be a very specific way for her, and she had issues. She legit had issues. Oh my god. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, so Lusamine's hype. Y'all need to chill on that. she's a much older woman, okay? Actually, you know what? Sometimes y'all are so super degenerates for the young ones. You know what? Go wild on Lusamine. Go wild. Actually, be your full degen selves with Lusamine. You have permission. You have permission. But yes, all in all, Generation 7 is an extremely good gen of Pokemon. It's underrated, it's overhated, it fixes a lot of issues that Pokemon had going forward, and it provided, for me at least, a lot of hope that the next Pokemon games would be another step in the right direction. It fixed a lot of issues I had with Gen 6. Specifically the difficulty issue. Specifically the story issue. Gen 6 was a slog to play through, and the novelty of playing through a new Pokemon game is really and truly what carried me through. And you want to know how I knew it was a novelty that got me through Gen X and Y. When I first started Oras, I was kind of burnt out of Pokemon, but when I started it, I was like, I'm not having fun. And I like Generation 3. Why am I not having fun? And then I realized Gen 6 in general was boring. Oras was boring. I like the difficulties that Emerald provided. Again, I like my Pokemon games to be hard, not like stupid, you know, oh yeah, I'm gonna make run and bun and a bunch of crazy ass Romax. Not those stuff. I like it to be casually fun, casually difficult. And that is something I can actively say almost all gens of Pokemon. Gen 9 provided that to an extent. Like, once you get to specific parts, it's like, oh, some of these fights are actually kind of like kicking your ass. Gotta be careful. Gotta actually be careful. But yeah, I liked how Generation 7 tackled stuff. I like how they made the story a central focus. I like how they removed HMs. I like how the gameplay became a lot more smoother, a lot more streamlined. I like how every single character in this game that is important is fleshed out to some very good degree, and they're not just you fight a gym leader and then forget about them. Because I'm telling you, Generation 6 has some of the... I do not remember the Generation 6 gym leaders. What did they do? I know the Gen 5 gym leaders. I know them. You know why? They did shit outside of actually just fought you. What did Gen 6 gym leaders do? I don't want to turn this into a Gen 6 bad, Gen 7 great rant, but again, Generation 7 was a very good step in the right direction, and I very much want people to at least realize that a lot of the complaints that y'all have, y'all are on that bullshit. Gen 6, I will forever call out Gen 6. I'm sorry, no amount, there's no fixing it. All of the games in Gen 6 suffer from the same problem. Really easy, storylines suck. You have to play through 8 hours or more of Oras to get to the good part, which is the Delta episode. You know how annoying that shit is? I shouldn't have to wait for the post game to the game to get good. I shouldn't have to. I should not have to. Gen 7, the game's like, here you go, you're into the world of Pokemon. By the way, we're not holding your hands. This won't be a hand-holding game. We're throwing you into the lion's den. We give you a shit ton of Pokemon to catch. Now go out there, catch some Pokemon, and be prepared, because every single fight you're having is going to tell you, if you want to steamroll this game with your starter, here's a middle finger for you, because it ain't happening. I liked Gen 7. I think Gen 7 was amazing. And I once more want to thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed this rant. I mean, a lot of it was basically just Gen 7 is harder Gen, therefore good. But Gen 7 has a good story, so therefore good. But I'll be honest, it really is. That's what I look for in a Pokemon. I look for something that's casually going to make me actually feel challenged, make me use new Pokemon, have me the ability to use Pokemon that I've never used before. And it's not just me spamming one Pokemon or one move or able to just steamroll the game very easily. And that's a problem I somewhat had in Gen 8 until the champion fight, cause whoo-wee, Leon is a menace. But yeah, once more, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next Uran Rants, where I don't know necessarily what I'm gonna do. I have an idea of what I want to do, but I'm not gonna say it cause that topic is heavy. So I'll see if I'm gonna actually hit it up or not. But once more, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Check out my Twitch streams. There are a lot of me being very opinionated and stuff. So, you know, if you like this video, you'll like my Twitch streams. Also, a lot of challenges, like I'm doing a Pokemon Blue Nuzlocke with crowd control, which means you'll be able to directly influence the game as I play it. You can put my Pokemon to sleep, burn them, poison them, all sorts of things, make them have terrible DVs, which means their stats will be worse. You can actually help me as well. There's a lot of things happening. And I also know that once I beat that, I definitely think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take time out and try to beat GTA with crowd control. Not from the start, but from where, because I've never been the single player version of GTA. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt that with crowd control active. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to continue where I'm left off. I'll go from there. So once more, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed these Uran Rants. Next one is going to be, I'm not sure if it's going to be a rant, but it's going to definitely be something I want a discussion around, because I feel like there's things I need to get off my chest, so there's that. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. And yeah, I will see y'all in the next one. Bye-bye. Peace out. And remember, Generation 7 is good!